Hey guys, it's me, Brandi Pett with Yes, I Am the Veteran podcast, and we are here right now interviewing Miss Shelina Frey. It's odd calling you Miss Shelina Frey. You have many, many, many other titles and hats. But it's actually kind of interesting because of the fact that Shelina and I actually met while I was serving in the military. So when you're in the military, when you're enlisted, right, you have someone that basically is your advocate, and they call them your first sergeants. But they're not always like the fun advocate. They can also be like the parent doling out that punishment when it
Yep.
needs to be. Look at her face. She knows exactly. Yes. Nothing is worse than being standing at attention in front of your shirt's office. Nothing is can compare to a principal's office like that or worse, because when you're at attention, your supervisor is also at attention. You know that you're getting it twice. But what's so amazing about Shelina is before she was Command Chief Master Sergeant, she was a first sergeant to me decades and decades ago, no, not that long ago, but back in 2008. And I actually almost lost both legs of my right arm, and she had to coordinate my Aerovac. She would visit me every day. I don't remember most of the days. I'm sorry, Chief. I had a lot of morphine. However, it's amazing to have someone so amazing that's done so much come on the podcast. And we are truly, truly honored that you were able to come on this hybrid podcast program. And it speaks volumes to me to see you. I'm just excited to see you every time I see you. I'm not in a wheelchair this time, yes. But thank you so much again for coming on. And it is an honor. And it's actually funny because the three of us ladies are Air Force. So I was pretty excited about that. So let me have our guest host introduce herself. Did you want to go and introduce yourself, Tiffany?
Yeah, sure. Hello, and thank you so much for having me on. Tiffany Orner, third generation military, second generation Air Force. My two boys are going in, one loadmaster, my 19-year-old, and then I have a senior who Air Force Academy. Okay, we're all gonna just pray to whatever we believe in, and he's gotten accepted into 5 other colleges, but serving, it's in our DNA. My husband just raised his right hand, and he just enlisted in the Air Force Reserves. This is the 6-year-old, and that's fine. This is military life as a mom, right? So anyway, I'm so excited to be here, Chief. Lovely to meet you, ma'am, and any opportunity to hang out with Air Force chicks is a good day in my book. So again, I thank you.
Well, I am honored, absolutely honored to be here with Brandi, who I've known for quite some time, and she knows she holds a special place in my heart for so many reasons. And I'm so proud of you, Brandi, and what you're doing right now for our military community, for our women in the military, for everybody who serves from all walks of life. Tiffany, it is so glad to meet you. And to hear you talk about having an 18-year-old, you look 18 yourself, I just don't get it. But whatever it is you're drinking or whatever crackers you're eating, I certainly have to go get me some. There it is. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so, Shelina Frey, I am a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. That is home for me. I now live in Florida after retirement for the job that I work for. But I went into when I joined the military, I joined by way of the Louisiana Air National Guard. I only had an uncle who had been in the Army, and so I didn't really know a whole lot about military life, so to speak. And it wasn't a day-to-day thing that I got to see. But when I went to college and couldn't become a special ed teacher because my counselor said I was just too passionate, go figure, how can you be too passionate? But now that I'm older, I understood what she meant. But at the moment, I was just distraught. And so I had to find this purpose for me in life. And so I joined the Guard just to be sure that this military thing was what I wanted. And of course, my uncle said, hey, listen, you can come in the military, but you are definitely going in the Air Force. And he was definitely right. Though I love all branches of the service, but I am true blue day in and day out. And so I joined the Guard. I was an admin troop. I worked in the motor pool, and I will tell you, I went 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year. I found myself there on my days off from my job at the hospital, and I absolutely loved service. I love this military atmosphere. I love the military family, and it was just me. It belonged to me, and I belonged in it. And so when I couldn't get a full-time spot with the Louisiana Air National Guard, I said, okay, guys, I got to go. This is way too good. And so I went on active duty in May of 1987. And the rest, as they say, is history. And it is a wonderful history. Came on active duty, admin troop. Years later, taught PME, professional military education, to our younger airmen coming into the military, teaching them military leadership. And then after that, as Brandi mentioned, I became a first sergeant, which is almost like, I don't know, a prison warden, a drill instructor, somebody who really
little
just
bit of a
really
guidance
cared
counselor.
about, exactly, cared about your day-to-day life and how you adjust into the military, making sure your family was taken care of, making sure you understood what it meant to be in the military and that you were capable of following the military core values, the Air Force's integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. So it wasn't to make you something that you couldn't be, but it was to give you a hope of something that you could be and serve your country. So did that for 7 years. And then years later, I became a chief master sergeant, the highest rank that you can reach in the Air Force, in E9. And went on to be a command chief, which meant that I was really close to commanders. And again, my job was always to take care of people, to make sure that those, when I say under me, I don't believe anybody was under me, but under my leadership, had everything they needed to serve and to serve honorably, and that they were treated as fair could be.
Yep. And she's absolutely right. And even when she would give you those scoldings, she'd end it with a little bit of, this is what you could do to improve. I think they call that the compliment sandwich, maybe like the Ritz compliment sandwich in that case. But sometimes we needed it, though. And the first sergeant's job is never done, ever.
No, never. And it was tough.
Yeah, they're the cat wranglers,
yes.
Right? They handle
yes.
all the junior enlisted on the dorms. And God bless you guys. Just real quick, my first sergeant is actually here in the Panhandle.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. He's like, hey, I live here. And I'm like, huh? Right? Snap to attention. So.
Don't tell my secrets.
Right.
I have a waiver. I'm good. But it's funny how, you may not see that person for 20 years, but muscle memory will snap right back when you see that person again. You're like, who? Like, yep, I'm at parade rest. That's not weird at all in the grocery store. But yeah, that totally happens. And I mean, your kids know your first sergeant. Your spouse definitely knows your first sergeant.
Yep.
Like the commander is like the first sergeant's right hand, literally. I mean, so a lot of times how your shirt knows you really makes a difference in your career.
Sure.
And honestly, having good leadership in anywhere you are, it's so important just to have good mentors that mean well for you. And I mean, Shelina's being modest. Like, she gets mobbed everywhere she goes, even now, like what, crowds of 30 to 50. Like, she's like a famous woman. I mean, she kind of is famous in her own right. Absolutely. However, you will see airmen mob her from all over the place. Like, I've seen it done at Lake and Heath. Like, she couldn't go anywhere. Like, the commander, he could slip in and out with generals, and no one would notice. But Shelina, nope. We always know where the shirt was, always. And you'd always hear her laugh, go down the hallways. What was your biggest challenge being a first sergeant, may I ask?
You know what? The biggest challenge being a first sergeant is understanding cultures. I grew up in New Orleans. I ate what I ate. I did what I did. I went to public school, but everybody didn't grow up the way that I grew up. And so it's getting to see people from where they came from to where they can go. And I think sometimes we get it wrong. We want to see people the way we think they ought to be, and that's just not how it works. You see their potential, yes, but then you have to know where they are right now, and then what will it take for this person to get to where we need them to get to, understanding their culture, understanding, what motivates me, what causes me to clam up, and just understanding those kinds of things, and then taking all of that and meshing it with this military culture, this military way of life, and how do I make you not lose who you are as a person, but to become that airman that the Air Force needs you to be.
Yeah. And that's hard too, because sometimes people will fight you like a wet cat the whole way.
Oh, absolutely. And because sometimes people join the military and it's really not for them.
Yeah.
And that's really tough. But they feel like it's a way to get to something in life that they want. But then they're not aligned with, the culture of the military and the way things work. And the military doesn't change to suit you. You've got to change to be a part of it. And that's just life.
Yeah, unfortunately. So a lot of the agency of choice is something that you definitely learn is in a different kind of capacity when you're in the military. So it's important to prep yourself for when you do get out. So that way you're setting yourself up for success. And I know that every good first sergeant or commander or command chief, I mean, they always talk about, prepping yourself for success, going to school, enriching yourself in one way or another, and being your own best advocate. And I honestly, personally can't advocate that enough.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so thank you so much, Chief. So Tiffany, what was your question?
Yes, question for you. All right, I wrote it down because so many thoughts. Always, I have to stay focused, right? So, what was something you struggled most with during your military service regarding your race? Was that ever an issue for you?
So, I like to say sarcastically, it was never an issue for me. I mean, I knew who I was, but that's really true though. And I will tell you, growing up in New Orleans, especially going off to college, which was a predominantly Caucasian or white college, my mom and my grandparents prepared me for, let's say, negative interaction. What they did was, hey, listen, you have to know who you are, what you're capable of, and then you have to have this thing called thick skin, because sometimes people will call you something that you're not, just to get you to be something that they don't want you to be. And so even, when we go into the military and we go through basic training and we go through tech school, those are skills that we learn. Those are ideas that we adhere to, but you're still that same person that grew up wherever you grew up, however you grew up, with the same background and culture as I talked about before, and you bring that with you. And so the military doesn't make you better than you were before, right? So if you grew up and you knew Black people to be a certain thing or this or that comes with you. And so for me, it was always, first of all, being respectful, because I don't have to argue with anybody about who I am. I decide who I am. I define me. You either like it or you don't, but I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be unapologetic about it, however, very respectful. And so those moments when people only saw the color of my skin, then I made sure they understood and needed the content of my character. So when you needed me, I knew what I needed to do to help you. And it wasn't about being better than anybody else, but I had to be the best of me, so that when you saw me, you saw my talent, right? You saw my compassion. You saw my worthiness. And then I just happened to be the African American female. But I am that first. I am that first and foremost, whatever that means. Because I have to tell people all the time, I said, when I was in my mother's womb and her mother's womb and so forth and so on, none of us got to decide what our skin color was going to be. Okay. We didn't. And so we're born into a world right? And then we become the person that we are based on experience and the things that we're taught and learned. And so when you are in a community of differences, then you have to understand who you are so that when different comes and it doesn't understand you, that you don't become something that you're not and you don't even understand you. So I when I went into the military, I worked predominantly for Caucasian men. Um, the senior people around me whose leadership I would like to say I mimicked was Caucasian men. So there was a lot of things going on there, though. I understood them, right, as they were teaching me so that when I presented myself to the rest of the organization, they couldn't help but see who I was, not what I was, right? And so the first time somebody ever called me the N word or nigger, because we're grown folks and we can say that, um, in their presence, I played it off like, man, really? That's what you want to call me? Look at me. I didn't change. I am who I say I am. And then they got mad because I didn't react the way they thought I should. But when they walked away and I walked away, I was so frustrated in the fact that somebody felt the need to do that. And I never understood, why does the color of my skin aggravate you so much? Right? So much. And so I as I got older though, you kind of, again, you let that stuff go and you just be the best you that you can be.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a purpose driven life, and I'm a believer. I do believe in God, and I don't push that on anybody because it's for me. And so I knew and understood what my life was about, and all the things that my mom and my grandparents and friends and those men who I grew up with, and when I started in the military, I had all of that going for me. And so the skin got tough, and then I was able to overlook some things, although still trying to understand, but
Yeah.
contribute to the cause, if you will.
No, that's
That was a
awesome.
long answer, and I apologize.
No, it's okay, but you covered so many important topics, right? And I feel like for so long I struggled with some stuff like that. But like
Mm-hmm.
when you start to understand that when people resort to that, it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's it for them, right? They have nothing
Right.
else left in the
No.
tank. And whenever I get that, it's in my head, and I say this multiple times a day, right? Whether it's to someone who cut me off or someone who is spicy to me or someone who
Sure.
is just
Sure.
having, I hope you find peace.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to get to that level because for so long, like you said, well, sometimes when we're younger, we internalize it. And, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Guess what? Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. So I thank you for sharing that. And I love that instead of seeing it as, oh, I grew up around, or not grew up, but my military career, white men, like you saw that as an opportunity to learn and
Yes.
then grow,
Yeah.
right? Versus being oppressed. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're
Not even
absolutely
that.
welcome.
She broke barriers. Not even that. Like, I mean, before there was no one like her in that position. Like when you took over as the command chief of the AMC, like what did you like? I don't know, like was there expectation like different when you took your said command, or was it something that they were like, hey, Sergeant Fry, how are you doing? Or Chief Fry?
Absolutely. I mean, from the time I became a first sergeant and started wearing the rank of, E6, E7, E8, E9, and your senior NCO, I felt like there was not just a calling, but there was an expectation because people were watching and noticing. Some were watching to see, how do I manipulate? How do I do this? But others were watching, or most maybe were watching to see, man, if she made it that far, how can I? And I never felt like, or never, and I pray that I never did, portrayed myself as something bigger than anybody else. I would say to them all the time, hey, listen, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. I did something wrong. I got my butt toe up from the flow up, and I had a little smart mouth. And so, I grew up just like the rest of you. I've had things happen in my life that should have took me out, but yet I had a mama who was strong, who made me strong, and life is worth living. And there's things that you could just get over. You just got to live. And so you heard me earlier talk about a quote. And I love this quote, and I apologize to the lady who wrote it because I don't remember her name. But it says, to fall in love with the paint on the canvas and the paint on the floor. See, because we every day we paint a picture, right? Or we add to that canvas of life. And it's this beautiful, beautiful picture because we paint it, right? But to get to that beautiful picture, there's a whole lot of paint that's on the floor, right? And some people look at that and may call it a failure, but it's not. Actually, it is your success, right? Because if it wasn't for the paint on the floor, you would not have a beautiful canvas. And so when things happen in our life, that is just maybe not conducive to growth, but it really is, because it's all in how you get over it. You know, it's all in how you deal with things. So when I was growing up in the Air Force, there were not a lot of Black females that I could look at that were growing in a direction that I wanted to grow in. And I didn't come in the Air Force saying, oh, I'm going to be, well, I did say I was going to be a chief one day because that's, you know, that's why I stayed for as long as I did.
I mean, and you did.
Yes. And so, but, you know, the whole command chief thing, because I did want to be a first sergeant, but the whole command chief part, you know, came about when, hey, you're going to be not, you know, my bosses didn't ask me if I wanted to be a command chief. My two-star general at the time told me I was going to be a command chief. I'm like, well, sure, yes, sir. And so, you know, there were times growing up when, growing in the Air Force, where I felt like I was, you know, I was not Black enough for Black people and not white, or too Black for white people. And so, you know, you get to a point, you throw your hands in the air and say, you know what, I'm just going to be me. And I always say there's two lines in my life, those who like me, those who don't. And I watch those people jump in and out of that line based on whatever it is I do. So it doesn't matter what I do. You know, some's going to like you, some's not going to like you. But I knew that I owed it to airmen to be the best that I could be, so that they could dream and hope to be better. And I always tell them, baby, don't want to be like me, be better than me. Aim higher than I could go. And, you know, there are some that contribute to, you know, me setting a pace, or, you know, for others to follow. And if that's what I did, then you know what? I thank my mom, I thank God. And, you know, and that I had the sense and the wherewithal to do the things that I needed to do so that others could follow. And that was my mantra.
I mean, so many people say that, you know, one person's struggles are another person's survival guide. You very much paved the way for many other women to follow you. And honestly, I think that they have an amazing person to look up to. I mean, for me, I wasn't someone of color that dealt with issues because of my appearance. I was dealt with issues because of my scars and my braces and being in a wheelchair. And people will call me terrible things: a monster, a disgrace, a freak. I should be ashamed of myself. You know, I'd have, you know, master sergeants threatening to beat me up. But I was like, I can't help it. I promise you. I would wear my boot if I could, but my surgeon won't let me. But at the end of the day, you know, it's about how in the military, they have a saying called, you know, you adapt and overcome.
Yes.
For me, it took a long time of being angry at the cards I was dealt because I felt that it was unfair. I was 23, you know, I was going to be a PA. I had all these plans, and, you know, it was derailed, and massively so, like to the point where I was medically retired. My drill sergeant actually medically retired me. So fun fact by that.
Yeah.
That was funny. And also Colonel Wigland. He actually went to
my love.
Funny. Small Air Force. But at the end of the day, you never know where you're going to end up. If someone would have told me when I was in the ICU in England, you know, being told I was going to lose my right leg, that 10 or 14 years from now, I'd be in a podcast, you know, I'd be doing programs, I'd be doing all kinds of amazing interviews and journalistic entries, you know, I wouldn't have believed them. I really, truly wouldn't have, because I thought my life was over at 23 when that terrible incident happened to me. And I think a lot of people get fixated on that one super traumatic incident and they don't want to move past that. And honestly, it's all mental strength and fortitude that really can get you to that next obstacle, that next stepping stone, and you're going to look back and think, what if I had stopped there? Where would my life be now?
Yes. And so I tell people all the time, I said, hey, listen, do you want to know the secret to my success? They're like, yeah, tell me. And I say, my failures, right? Because I'm never afraid to try. And if I see a need, then I'm going to do my best to fulfill that. If I see a struggle, I'm going to do my best to lessen that. And sometimes you do fail. Now, stupidity is when you do the same thing over and over again, thinking you're going to get a different answer, right? It's like watching the Super Bowl again today, thinking that the Eagles are going to win when we all know who won the Super Bowl last night. That's craziness. But when you're passionate and you're really trying to do the right thing by people, and it just takes your heart and your passion and your soul. I mean, there's many nights, and people don't know this, but I'll be vulnerable because I'm okay with that. I spent a lot of nights in tears when I felt like I failed somebody or I couldn't help them, right? But then you just try the next time. I've taken a lot of my failures, a lot of my life tragedies, and I use them to help other people. When I was sexually assaulted at 15, and my mother died not knowing that, and I had to go through life dealing with that on my own because my parents couldn't afford to send me to see a psychiatrist. And when I joined the military, and I used that to grow, and I'm determined that I'm going to have a good life. I am going to be a good person. There's things that you could take from me, but there are some things that you can't. Yep. And that's my true self, my true being. And so when I watch young ladies who were being assaulted or who couldn't have children because I couldn't have children because of endometriosis, then I began to talk to them. Why? Because they were looking at me like I was this big hero. And I'm like, whoa, let me tell you what I've been through. Let me tell you about my journey to this thing that you call success, which it really was. I'll call it that, which it really was. But I had to walk through something. I had to walk through fire. I had to step on nails. I had to duck and dodge blows. I had to take insults from people who didn't really know me, but they were trying to tear me down. So I had to deal with that. I had to climb a ladder, but God darn it, somebody was pouring grease on it. So it wasn't always that I could grab it tightly and hold on to it. I mean, sometimes it was slippery, and sometimes I fell down a rung or two, but then you get back up and you just keep trying. Right? And you don't make a big production about it, right? When I became the first African American female at a 4-star major command,
that's amazing.
Somebody had to tell me that.
No one was more excited that you made it than me, by the way.
But, when the 3-star general hired me to be still the only female to ever have command Air Force Central Command, I knew that. I knew what he was asking me to do. Mm-hmm. And it scared me. I won't even lie to you. It scared me. Yeah. But not to the point where I would say, nah, sir, I can't do that. Because listen, somebody was doing it. It doesn't matter whether he was a guy or not, or 10 guys before him did it. A human being did it, and by golly, so can I. And I did.
And you did.
Those are the things you're supposed to do, right? The things that completely terrify you.
Absolutely, Tiffany.
Do it anyway. And the growth is in the process. Everyone wants you're not going to get the car, the money, all of that.
Right.
Yeah. And you're not going to get, who cares? You're not going to get it because you don't deserve it. It's always the journey. So that is such a cool story. And I want you to say your title as the first Black woman to say it again for the people in the back, because that's amazing.
Well, and there was two first. So the first was the first African American female to be the Command Chief Master Sergeant, Senior Enlisted Leader in the Air Force Central Command, and that's deployed. That's the deployment arena. And then go on later to be the first African American female to be the Senior Enlisted Leader to a 4-star general. I mean, we're talking about huge responsibilities. We're talking about the margin for error was right? And everybody's looking at you. You're always on stage. People are hanging on your every word. They're questioning your every word. They're questioning your every action. Mm-hmm. You spend too much time with this group. Hey, what's going on? If you spend too much time with this group, hey, are you just a female? Are you just an African American female? I'm all of those things. not just,
Yep.
right? You just asked me that, but I am all of those things. And so you have to be able to turn it around. When people said negative things about me on social media, you don't reply to that stuff.
Not
First
worth
of
it.
all, you don't win that,
Nope.
right? Everybody has an opinion and they're entitled to their opinion, but I'm entitled not to give up.
Thank you.
Beep. And then also too, what's the
Yeah.
saying? Like when people are arguing from afar, you can't tell who's right. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
let it go, Elsa. Let it go. Take a
Yes,
deep
you
breath and
do.
understand
You
that.
let it go.
Keep
You
moving
know,
forward.
we
Yeah.
all hear about it. What you say about me or how you feel about me is not my business.
It's
Now,
like,
if I'm not doing something right, man, I want somebody to check me. Check me
Right.
before
If our
I.
integrity is
Yes,
absolutely.
check me
Yeah.
before because I will process. But when it's garbage in, then it is definitely garbage out.
yes, ma'am. You said it better than
Definitely
anybody.
garbage out.
I know I skipped one of Tiffany's question, or I know I skipped my question and I made one up because I tend to do that. But Tiffany, what was your question, ma'am? I'm so sorry.
All right. Hold on, because now I'm like, which one do I want
It's
to know?
number 3.
Okay. So what is one thing you now know but wish you knew when you were active duty? Right? So what's something you know in the civilian sector that if you would have known, right, hindsight, what's
Yeah,
one
and
piece?
that one, Tiffany, that's a difficult one because, it's all about timing. So if I known that, man, that's a tough one. But I'm gonna let's see if I can answer that. What is it I wish I had known? First of all, I served 34 years in the United States Air Force. Had I known retirement was going to be so good, maybe I would have left at 33. I don't know, a year sooner. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
right.
I will tell you, when you have served for so long, I don't know that there's anything that prepares you for the transition of being in an organization. We can say a lot of bad things about the military, but I won't because I love it. I mean, I have sons and daughters. I call Brandi my daughter. I have sons that I didn't give birth to anybody, but I have thousands upon thousands of children.
Really
I
does.
have, a plethora of brothers and sisters. Moms and dads that belong to other people's, other friends of mine. And so that lifestyle, there's a common core experience that we share in the military that's different on the outside. So I would flip the question and say, what is it from the military that I would bring to the civilian world, right? And that
All of it.
is
All
Oh,
of it.
exactly, Tiffany. I was going to say that. Now I work for a company now. We have core values, and we cater to the military. But there's still some things. There's still that camaraderie. There's still that togetherness. That's still that you, my brother, you, my sister, I got your back. That just doesn't happen like it does in the military. It'll be in 3 days, it'll be 5 years that I've retired. And there's still people that I am so involved with still, people that still call me that, hey, you used to be my Airman Leadership School instructor. And so this is when I was an E5, E6, and they were very young rank airmen, and now they're chief master sergeants. And they call me or they send me a note says, hey, listen, I just want to thank you for being honest with me. I want to thank you for being real with me. I want to thank you for putting your finger in my chest. I'm like, oh, I did that? They're like, yeah, you put your finger in my chest and you got my head right. And you know what? I didn't appreciate it or you then, but man, thank you now. And I'm like, hey, okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't realize the impact you have until years later when people grow up and appreciate and realize that you were really looking out for them.
Yep. And I think that's why so many people love you is because you give that tough love that you kind of need, but a lot of people don't like to always have to hear. You and Chief Anderson definitely when you were mad, like you run the other way as quickly as possible or hide. Usually, if you hear your name, you're like, "Oh, they saw me."
Yeah, but it's about it truly is about though being vulnerable, right? Because I had to, in order for me to get you, Brandi, to understand that I really cared about you and I love you, I had to share me with you.
Mhm.
Now, you couldn't call me Shelina. You call me Shelina now, and I appreciate that. But, I was your first sergeant then. But, so we weren't friends, but I needed you to understand that I cared about you as if you were my own child. I mean, I did, and I do. And that's hard for a lot of airmen, depending on how they grew up. How can you tell me you love me? You don't really love me, but yes, I really do.
She really did.
But you don't know me. I don't have to know you. No, I don't have to know you. You're here right now with me. We are wearing this uniform, the cloth of our nation. We are about the same thing. We raised our hand and we took the same oath. And at the end, we said, "So help me God." This is the "So help me God" piece.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of us forget that an oath of enlistment ends when we get out. Our core
Oh, of
values
course.
don't.
Of
Our core
course.
values don't. And those
Yes.
definitely need to be things that more people need to really think about and how it applies to everyday life, civilian or military, because it's so important.
Yeah. And I will tell you, the military really, when we talk about, I know this is Black History Month and we talk about race and our America has gone through a lot, but the military really, and I'm going to say try it because it's hard to change somebody's roots, right? When you're born with a thing, you're born with a thing. I mean, you fake it so you can make it, but eventually it kind of seeps out and you can rein it in if you have control, especially when you get older. But the military was really, I think, did a really good job as best as it could to try to, solve some of that, to try to make it so that you felt like no matter what walk of life you were from, you could serve. And it's just incumbent on each and every one of us, to embrace the fact that, hey, listen, if you're going to join the military, you're going to run into people, you're going to run into things that are different from the way you grew up, but it doesn't make it wrong at all. It just makes it different. And so, we used to think it was cool to say, well, I don't see color, which meant I'm not prejudiced, I'm not racist. But that was the problem. See, we needed to see color. You needed to see the fact that I'm an African American female and that I come from New Orleans, Louisiana, and things were different in New Orleans. Not this, why do all Black people eat chicken? Well, everybody eats chicken if it's good.
Especially on base, Popeyes is like one of the only places that was good everywhere.
So that was not indicative of being an African American eating fried chicken.
Yeah, like no one ate.
So we had to get over the ignorance of it and then get to the truth of the matter that my color matters because it is a part of who I am.
Absolutely.
So
You're right.
yeah, now we're starting to see color, but now we got to go another step and see culture.
So speaking
Yeah.
of other steps, in the era of just following desegregation, I know that's a little bit past when you enlisted, but I'm sure you were still seeing some of the the bits of it from, I guess, like how far they had come, I guess. Um, was it difficult to have your rank of command authority respected by servicemen or women of other races? I know for me personally, I was a minority usually, but I know there's other places that it was very much opposite. Like it really just depended on what your job was.
Right.
But what would you do about that in your time period, if that applies to you?
Well, and it kind of does or doesn't, I would imagine. But in the military, one of the things that we would say is, I may not like you, but I will respect your rank, right? So for the most part, people respect your rank, even if they didn't like you. And I'm so sure there were so many people who respect my rank and didn't care very much for me or maybe my leadership style. And that was okay because it wasn't for them. I was an airman's chief, and my job was to
Sure.
make sure that every young airman felt like somebody cared about them. So, um, so when you talk about segregation and those things, again, when folks were in the military, they knew for the most part, that they couldn't really be forthright right out in the open. So it was things that were done on both sides of the fence,
Through
right?
paperwork or
Not just Caucasians against African Americans.
Yep.
And the thing about racism, I mean,
all
it's
racism.
out and it's in, right? So within your race, you have racism, and then outside your race, you're disputed against. And so it's just this ongoing thing. And that's why it's so important in today's society to understand who you are and then be understanding of others and
Yep.
to embrace difference, because we're all different. It doesn't mean better, worse,
Yep.
or it just means different, and we can deal with different.
Oh yeah.
Understand how different you are.
That was the one thing I loved about when we'd be in like the dorms or the barracks. The few times I wasn't on ambulance call, definitely not Lake Heath, because I never got those super sweet places to stay. I got Cannon, okay. They get like bolted in like curtains to like catch bullets. I'm like, there's no practical use anymore. Anyways, but at the end of the day, like you could be dancing to Bad Bunny down the hall. You could have someone teaching you something like, that they like to watch on BT in the main room. You could have someone else watching, Seventh Heaven down the street, like you braiding your hair. Like it's a melting pot. Like you never know who you're going to have as your roommate or your bunkmate or your shipmate or your supervisor even. Like, I mean, everybody, can be potentially very different. So if you don't have that accepting mindset, it's going to be a very difficult enlistment for you.
Yes, and I think we've come a very long way. And I watch airmen, older people, they still have those issues, but that was their culture. That's what they grew up in. That's what they knew. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, if young people are talking, ignorance, it's because somebody taught them that and they embraced it. But for the most part, though, when I look at young people, they're very accepting. We have LGBTQ plus. And we went through that in the military. Oh, we're going to allow gays in. No, we're not. They're already here. They've been. Now then you don't have to hide it. Well, I'm just going to get out. Well, why? Is somebody chasing you? Just because somebody's gay doesn't mean they want you. So stop.
Thank you.
Why are you doing that? And then it becomes, transgender. Well, transgender doesn't not necessarily mean gay, and the gay doesn't really mean wrong or bad. These are people who have decided that this is how they want to live their life. Yep. And so as long as they can put on a uniform and be an airman, God bless them. Yep. Amen. Let's move on.
And that's exactly. Like, listen.
Yeah.
As long as they're a good person.
Yes.
Who cares what they look like, what they smell like? As long as their intentions are pure, especially if they're willing to be a part of the, 0.6% of us that have raised their right hand at this point. Let's stop and let's just say thank you for your service, but from a different place. Not that artificial twice a year type stuff. So I appreciate that perspective, and that's something that I try and teach my children. Well, they already know. The older ones know, but the little one, she loves everyone as well. So I love that, and I agree with you. I think the Air Force, agree with you both, has done an amazing job because listen, when you're at your first duty station, you're terrified. You got a sweet mate. You don't know what's going on. Everyone's like, So you may have been the most racist person ever. But when the rubber meets the road and y'all are squared up because it's a bag drag at 2:00 in the morning, you're not worried about what color the person is next.
Exactly.
You're like, please don't tell them I'm sleeping.
Look where the panties are in the bag. What are you talking about? Like usually you bring like your basic training stuff, so it's like in your car, so you'll pass, but it's nothing you'd wear on a deployment. Can you imagine if they actually made us deploy in only what we brought with that bag drag? Like, I bet a commander has done
do it.
I need to know
this.
They
should do it now. No, they can't do it now. The girls on the Air Force girls now are so like beautiful. They are like confident. I was like awkward, like the girls now are like I serve.
Yeah, they're working on helicopters and working on cars and so they're things have really come around, and I'm so proud of our young people. I think the biggest challenge that we have with them is acceptance, and this is why that they're thinking it's okay to take their life, because somebody's not accepting them. I mean, I can remember a time as a command chief, I had a young airman, security forces kid. He was in charge of one of the private organizations, and he was doing a bang up job. And we're overseas. And so I said, hey, you know what? I want to call your parents. He says, no, Chief, don't do that. I said, yeah, man, I want to call your parents because I want them to know that you are highly regarded. I mean, the commander and I were both high on this young man. We were in awe of him. And so he said, okay. So he gave me the number. I called his mom, and I'm gloating over this kid. And what she says to me is, yeah, but I just wish he wasn't gay.
There it is.
I'm like, ma'am, let me tell you something.
Oh, no.
He is so much more than just gay. I mean, that's his lifestyle, and we respect that. He is a wonderful human being. And I'd like to give you credit for that because you raised him. He is absolutely amazing. He's very respectful. He has the attention of myself, the highest ranking enlisted person, and the commander on this base. We hold him in high regard. He wins awards all the time. And I just wanted you to know that. Well, okay. Well, you guys can have that. I said, that's okay, ma'am. I love him. And I hung up on her.
Oh,
I hope she finds peace. I hope
she
finds peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then I had to have a conversation with him. I'm like, listen, I know that's your mom, and I know you are thirsty for her love. But you're at an age now where the greatest love has got to be the love of yourself. You got to love you first, baby. And then, you know, there are other people around you, and your mom loves you. She's just having a tough time accepting a certain facet of your life. And she'll be okay. She'll get through that. You have to live your life unapologetically and know that so many people are proud of you and we love you. And I still keep in touch with that kid today.
That's amazing. Yay. I love it. Hope he's doing well.
Yeah. And this is, again, that's not about me. That's about him. But I'm just saying that our young folks, they need to be championed. They want to be understood. They want to do the right things. And we just have to encourage them to live.
We need to be mentors.
Their life.
Yeah.
Not our life. We had our opportunity, right? We have our opportunity. They need to live their life.
Yeah.
And be respectful and all those things, but they have to live their life.
Yeah. And guided. I mean, mentorship is like so on the down, like swing on things. Like we need to start doing better by our people and just mentor. If that means you check on one person a day that maybe you haven't talked to in a while, if that means that you sign up for Big Brothers Big Sisters, if that means that you do anything. I mean, Maya's Love is an amazing way. I mentor kids with PTSD that survived the Robb school shooting, and that was amazing. These kids are awesome. I absolutely love these children.
Sure.
But you never know who you will impact by just taking the time and talking to somebody. I know that you've got to go here shortly, Tiffany, but ask one more question and then we'll just do final thoughts from everybody, if that's okay. You got the last three.
Yeah, I have to. I'm sorry. Cheer. Kids ruin everything in the best way. Right?
Just pick one.
All right, let's see. Oh, this is a sweet one. What was one thing that the command chief sitting here now would say to the baby face airmen you once were? So what would you say to the junior enlisted, first duty station, super excited to go to the PX and spend all her money? Tell me.
Please tell me.
What I would say to her? I would say, look here, little Shelina. Everything you need to be successful, your mama already taught you. All you have to do is walk the walk. And as we grow, when we get to a certain age, our shoe size stops changing. So when you put your foot in a shoe, make sure it's yours and make sure it fits you and walk in your shoes, not somebody else's, because just because they walked it out successfully, just because they had a nice swag, does not mean when you put your foot in that shoe, you're going to have that same swagger.
And it's not going to be comfortable because it's not.
No. You know, you look to people for inspiration, but you don't look to them to determine how you should live your life.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay, Tiffany, I know you have to go soon. What are your final thoughts before we have you get out? But I'm going to have Shelina go next and then I'll go last.
Okay. So my final thoughts are Miss Shelina. I connected with you on LinkedIn, and Brandi's going to give you my phone number. We're both in Florida, and I think we just became best friends. Awesome. But no, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Brandi for putting us together. It takes a village, and when you move with intention and just love, and the stars align. I had heard of Brandi a couple years ago, and like all great things, but just never the opportunity. So I just thank you, Brandi, for doing what you're doing for the female veterans, period, point blank. And then Ms. Shelina for paving the way for us, both women and women of color, and sharing your story. I want to do things. March is coming up. I want to do all the things. I got to tell you about me and what I'm doing in Florida now. But anyway, I just want to I want to give thanks. Thank you guys so much. I get to go to cheer. But I thank you guys so much. And you that part. All right, guys.
And Tiffany was my first pick, by the way. Actually, when we decided to do this, Tiffany was the one I wanted to be my guest host. I was like, if we're gonna have another female host, it's gonna be her because of all the work she's done, especially with a certain act passing last year, helping millions of veterans, just driving everyone crazy every day, just doing her antics. I was watching her on Instagram. I'm like, this is so fun to watch. But at the end of the day, it got done, and honestly, I will respect her for it. So thank you so much for taking your time. And
I like that.
Okay, hon.
What?
I said, have a good night. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I love you guys so much.
Good night,
wonderful rest of your night.
Bye-bye.
All right, Shelina. So let's hear your final thoughts, miss.
So Brandi, I absolutely am so proud of you. I like the path that you're on. I like that you're opening doors and windows for others to share their story, because I think that is so important that we learn how people have gone through and made it, in hopes that it inspires others to do the same thing. And again, I say, when I look in the mirror, what I see first is my mom. My mom passed away in 2010, and I learned so much from my mom, so that when I joined the military, I aligned the core values that I was taught growing up with what the Air Force did. And so I was able to just fall in love, and I was able to be vulnerable, and I was able to be unapologetically me. And so if this kid from New Orleans, right, can step on the big stage and perform, and maybe sway a little bit, maybe stutter a word out or two, but just do what it takes to encourage people, to empower them, to grow them, to make them feel loved, to make them feel special, then I did what I was supposed to do. And I work for a company now that allows me to continue to take care of the military and their families, which I absolutely love, because I know it. I know the environment. I know the struggle, if there is one, not if, when there is one. And I know the success of getting from the struggle to success is absolutely possible. And I have the utmost confidence of those leaders that are still serving in our military, whether you're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and Coast Guard, that when we wake up in the morning, we wake up knowing that we raised our right hand and we solemnly swore to support and defend. And that we will do that at all costs, because we know who the enemy really is. And that person, that enemy, is not you or I. And so our job is to get you and I to a place, right, where we can continue to make America great. I know we hear a lot of bad things, but America is great. There's some great people out there. I mean, we watched a football game last night where thousands and thousands of people cheered and clapped, and they came together and they had a great time. Yeah. That's what I believe America is. When that football player fell ill on that field, and most of us believe he died for a couple of seconds, and the world came together and prayed for him, that is America. And America is a place where however you choose to live your life, as long as it's moral and it's ethical and it's loving and it's kind, then you should be able to live that way. And we should all respect you, and we should all champion you, and we should embrace that which is different and learn from it. So thank you. I love you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me on. I truly appreciate this. And, blessings to you and all those that are watching. And I pray that they all walk away feeling better about who they are.
Would you answer one last question for me?
Sure, absolutely.
What advice would you give to our younger viewers that are watching today, kind of just maybe at a crossroads, or just advice that you wish maybe you had at 17, 18?
So I'll tell you the advice that I did have, because remember I told you my mom and dad, man, they were not playing around, that we were going to be assets to society and not asses in society.
Oh, I know.
So, I would say to them to listen, you have got to take a look in the mirror. And you have got to not look past you, not look at your makeup, not look at how pretty you are, or thinking you can find a blemish within yourself. But you've got to figure out who you are as a human being, what matters to you, right? What makes you get up in the morning? And that's the thing that you've got to focus on, just being you. And you've got to love you more than anybody could ever love you. Because when you do that, when people hurt you, then you get to fall back on you and your love for yourself. And oh, by the way, if you don't love you, then how can anybody else love you? And you're lovable. You're here. You're here, and you're here for a reason. And life is worth living. Heck, I love you, and I am so glad you're here. So find that reason. Find that thing that makes you get up in the morning and say, hey, listen, we're here today, and we're going to make it, because you can. I did. And there's nothing special about me. And trust me, I've been through some stuff. And I woke up the next morning, and then I woke up the morning after that. And then things got better, and then things got better, and then things got better. And maybe I trip and fail, and I have to start all over again. But you do, because you have an opportunity. So live your life.
Yep.
Love your life, right? And be unapologetic about it.
Yep.
Because everybody's not going to love you. Everybody's not going to understand, but it is okay.
Absolutely. You couldn't said any better, or I couldn't said any better myself. Sorry. I apologize. My mouth's a little odd sometimes. I had severe PTSD, so I don't always make quite.
You're fine.
I should. I apologize.
You're fine.
At the end of the day, I mean, I was very different when Shelina saw me last. I think the only way she knew that she could see me was I was so pale, because I lost so much blood. I think was it my eye color that you could just see, like when I opened my eyes, that was the only way you knew I was there.
Yep.
How pale I was. Like Casper had nothing on me.
Right, and I could tell how you were feeling just by the way your eyes squinted.
Yeah.
But here
and we were in England.
Yeah, and you're beautiful, and I see
now like better.
Have an issue with seeing your scars, but you know what? They don't understand what those scars mean, and what it means is life. It means you're here. It means you made it. It means you beat the flipping odds, because we were not sure.
Yeah, many times. I mean, 3-4 times they would put me under surgery saying you were probably going to wake up without a leg. And then I'd pass out and I'd wake up freaking out going, do I have a leg or not? Yeah. But in England, it's not like the US. Think like Nurse Ratched medicine or 1970s medicine. Their surgeons are top class, which is why I have legs. They're mangled as all get out. However, I should be Lieutenant Dan right now. Every surgeon I've seen in the US has said that exact same thing. The only reason I didn't was because I had the Queen of England's private vascular surgeon treat me. And I just was in England at Cambridge at the right place at the right time. That's literally the only reason. But I push as far as I do to help other people, to empower people, because of the fact that a lot of people think you look nice now, nothing happened to you. If I wore a bikini, you would freak out.
Yeah.
And I've actually been thrown out of swimming pools before because I offended their children.
Sure.
And I was scaring them. So I'm actually classified as the most worst scarred veteran in San Antonio for prosthetics. So don't let how, an incident affects you make your self-worth mean less. Yes. Like I ran for Miss Veteran America. I was a finalist. I won Hot Mom of the Year with a mangled leg to the knee that
Right.
will scare like any hostile viewer. I'll tell you that. And I made sure that dress had that slit and you could see all of it. And at
Right.
the end of the day, I owned it and my daughter loved it. And I mean, it was something that it meant a lot to me because other women felt that maybe they could show something minor or a surgery that they had had because I was warned, cover up, women are uncomfortable by this. And I was like, it's an unfair double standard for women to be scarred, but men, it's an attractive quality.
Right.
So we need to start dispelling this rumor.
That's
so
right.
you really never know where you're going to end up on things. Just because something is bad, don't think that is a permanent solution.
That's
because
right.
in 5 years, you'll laugh about it.
That's
You will
exactly. And you just never know how you impact other people, right? How you empower them, how you give them that opportunity to just feel good about, who they are. Not that you gloat in somebody else's weaknesses, but you go, hey, listen, that person made it. They're living their life.
Yeah.
I should live mine. And so again, I am proud of you. I am glad to be here tonight, Brandi. And, thank you so much for thinking of me.
Absolutely.
And it means a lot. And of course, I love you. And so there's no doubt about that. But you keep doing what you're doing and I'll keep watching.
Absolutely, guys. So this is the end of this segment. I know it ran over, but I mean, it's my host show and I don't really mind. So hopefully you didn't either. But if you guys have any questions, we do have podcast pages. Yes, I am the Veteran Podcast. We are also on Instagram and Facebook. If you guys want to message us, you have questions for me, Sergeant Frey, anybody that really you see that are speakers, please do message us. We'd be happy to relay those for you.
Absolutely.
But have a good night, guys, and we will see you soon, okay? Bye.